What's up, Bitcoiners? Yeah, indeed, I see some of the comments. It's sunny, does look cold. It's not that cold, actually. Around freezing point, as we say in the metric system, 0, as you crazy Americans go on about, 32. Stupid system. We learn both in Canada, so we get to judge which system is the stupidest. Sun is up, right? You can see it coming in on the screen. It's bright as heck outside. And I checked. Bitcoin is running. Nothing else for us to do other than have coffee, talk about imminent hyper-Bitcoinization. Days away, days away. That's what it tastes like, days away. Morning, gang. Morning from Bangkok. Wow. Celsius makes more sense. Saying this as an American, indeed, catacombs. I even use Celsius as, water, the water component of Celsius, to help explain what Bitcoin means to the world. If you haven't heard it, I'll give it to you real quick because I would like you to steal it. It's actually a pretty good frame if you think it's worthwhile to steal. So the entire metric system is actually derived from the properties of water. It freezes and boils, and we made that 0 and 100, divided it. The volume is actually where we get measurements from. The kilometer is actually a derivative of a liter. A liter being a cubic unit of liquid. So that cubic unit of liquid, water in this case, the volume of it helps determine exactly how long a meter is, and then you get to a kilometer by having 1,000 meters. So yeah, it's a great system. I'm a big fan, and that's essentially what Bitcoin provides to money, right? It's a way to count. It's simply a way to count. We can't count the fiat money. We have no idea. Euro dollars. When you confuse credit and debt, and you make money and credit and debt all the same thing, this is what happens, right? This is what happens. So we can't count the money. We have no idea. That BIS, $80 trillion missing. Whoops. 4 times the size of the American economy. Yeah, I read that wrong. When I talked about it first in the show a few days ago, I said it's something like the 80 trillion missing from the BIS is something like it would be the second largest economy in the world. For a second, I thought the United States was 100 trillion. I don't know why. I had missed that its own, I forgot, I guess. I know that it's always about 10 times more than Canada, and I use that to sort of place all the countries in the world. And so, yeah, I guess it's a little less than 20 trillion in the case of the United States. Yeah, just a small whoopsie. And I did FedWatch yesterday with the Bitcoin Magazine folks, and I did it with, it's a great show. And we were talking about this, and we're talking about where this debt is actually held. Something like 40% of it is in week-long turnovers. So like 20% is overnight, and the other 20% is just sloshing around like slime and is there for a week. That's amazing. I mean, that means the whole thing could go, ass up in a night. Wow. We knew that, but when you hear about it, and that's basically what we're gonna talk about. The Catacombs Fed Watch, very informative yesterday. Did that too. Oh, great. Catacombs, awesome, guys. I like to start the show with fake news and stupid stuff and what's going on in clown world, right? This one is, so the advertisers are back on Twitter, it looks like, and the media has been advertising. The Wall Street Journal bought an ad yesterday trying to virtue signal that the men's soccer team is going to share the money they made with the women's soccer team. So I'm not going to do the joke here. I'm going to point you to, what's his name? Bill Burr. Bill Burr does one of the funniest skits you'll ever see on women's soccer. It is hilarious. And he basically just says, right, his whole gist is, now they're coming after the guys, right? They're coming after the guys because women's basketball and soccer are not that popular, right? Because everyone knows, even Don Lemon, right? Don Lemon got blasted on his morning show that he hosts with 2 women for saying exactly what I'm saying now. The men make more because more people watch, right? No one watches the female sports, so therefore they don't get money for it, right? It's not that interesting. So this idea that it's like a fairness thing, right? It's like, oh, it's not fair that the women get paid less. Well, they don't make they don't generate the interest. They don't generate nearly the interest. So that's why I love trans sports. I'm a huge fan of all the trans athletes because, and everyone's like, well, what are we going to do? The trans people playing and what's going on with that? Well, my argument has always been, I don't want to limit anything to do with men playing or women playing. I just say, let's take the best. Let's just take the best. Get away with the categories. Do away with them, right? Just take the best runners, the best cyclists, the best tennis players. Just say that. When people say, trans people should play sports, I 100% agree. We should just get rid of the distinction between men and women's sports. Now, some people will say, oh, but then women can't play. But you don't have to argue that. No. That's the point, right? Don't bother arguing it. Just say, well, you said it, not me, right? I'm not making that point. You're saying it. I say let everyone play, just like you're asking for. You want the trans people to play? So do I. I do, 100%. Let's just get away. Just do away with the categories. Why did we even have this female sport category to begin with, right? I don't know. I mean, people like watching it, I guess. But the Bill Burr thing, where the funny part of it is this. Basically, it's in this case, women coming after men for, it's their fault that the women's sports aren't popular, right? Why didn't you guys watch it too, right? And Bill Burr's whole point is like, well, why are the women in this, right? And the funniest line is they should be up in the bleachers with the men with their titties out. They should be cheering on their fans. And this is where it gets hilarious. He goes, meanwhile, they're spending billions on the Kardashians throwing money at people who are tearing each other down and being mean to each other and saying the worst things like your uterus is used up and you can't have babies and just ugliest stuff, right? And women are throwing money at them. Meanwhile, women who want to get together, common endeavor, work, sacrifice, they get no attention from women. Women abandoned them. It's women's fault that the women's soccer team doesn't make more money. The men support the men's teams. It's not my job to watch women's soccer or women's basketball or any of these other sports. I barely watch men's sports. How do I have time to watch women's sports too? It's not my job, right? So now the Wall Street Journal is paying. They're sponsoring this story, right? They're sponsoring it on Twitter. Hilarious. As we've said, right, we are very pro-trans on this show, 100%. And when Biden first announced Sam Brinton as the head of nuclear waste management in America, all kinds of people went crazy. Oh, how? Because Sam Brinton is trans. I'm not sure, transvestite, transgender, not exactly sure. I think transvestite, but I might be wrong. So please don't report me for getting this wrong. My mistake otherwise. So now what I said at the time when Sam was hired was it's a very good thing. For this reason, and I continue to believe this. I continue to believe it. We talk about information asymmetry between governments, and of course, a lot of privacy-minded people think that we need to get our privacy back because the government has so much insight onto us that in order to have not such an asymmetric imbalance, that we need more privacy to equal what the government has in terms of their own ability to be private. So that's one way to predict this whole privacy thing is headed in government, balance, and power. My prediction is the opposite. I think that our privacy is already out of the bag, and a solution to that could come later in time, but it doesn't look like it's clear and imminent right now. That could change. I could be wrong about that. But in order to indeed preserve this idea that there's no more asymmetry, I predict that people like Sam are going to be the model for the future in the sense that we're going to know more about them than now. And that's a good thing. So I was really happy when this person was first nominated to their position. And I said, all I want to know is if this person is good at nuclear waste management. I don't care what kind of clothes they wear. This is the way forward. There's going to be a lot more of this, I believe. We're going to find out a lot of things about a lot of people. And that'll be good, right? This idea that political characters had to fit into a cookie cutter and they had to have all these opinions. They had to be the same. That was no good, right? Especially bureaucratic appointees. Do they do their job? Yes or no? That's all I care about. Unfortunately, Sam is screwing me over. I was pro Sam 100%. I always was for this appointment, but I made a caveat, as long as they were good at their job. It turns out this is a very unserious person. Sam has now been caught stealing luggage, luxury luggage from airports 2 times. I kind of didn't care the first time. I said, okay, you know, people have weakness, but now it's 2 times. So this is a very unserious person. And as a person who is super interested in the promotion, the proliferation of US nuclear energy power, this is not a fit anymore. This is not working, right? But I will say that Sam, I think, has done a lot of good to sensitize all of us to information flow. And I think it's an example for the future in the sense that being open about what you do. And, you know, I know people keep getting triggered because he teaches rope stuff and spanking. But once again, I think it's going to become common in the future that we know way more about public figures, way more about these people, especially bureaucrats, if there are any left, and politicians. So I don't think we're going to get back to the world of everyone's buttoned up. You know, everyone is similar and everyone has very similar attitudes and all that stuff. I think that's finished, right? But I still think that the Sam person is a wave of the future, and we're going to get more and more of this. Unfortunately, Sam has not really made a great example by being a thief. So too bad, but you know, I hope we can get some kind of update on Sam's capacity in their job. I would like to know what's going on with the nuclear waste management, but doesn't look like a very serious endeavor. So unfortunately, that's the case. All right, so today's story, of course, we're going to talk about the Twitter files and a major development before I came live, which I'm going to put on the end because it changes a lot of things in America. I'll get to that. So what happened yesterday? Barry Weiss released the second batch of Twitter files. And this time it's all about shadow banning. So we saw particular accounts, how it was manipulated, how all of this stuff was orchestrated, how it was discussed. What they called it was visibility filtering, right? Visibility filtering. That's why when some of these folks gave public statements when they were criticized of shadow banning 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the end of the Trump administration, the 2020 election, you know, everyone was saying that what's going on with the shadow banning. Even Jack Dorsey said, we don't shadow ban, right? It doesn't happen. Forget it, never happening. Lots of people said, oh, stop it, you crazy Trump people. Stop it, you crazy Bitcoiners. Stop it, all of you people who have unorthodox opinions that challenge the power structure of the world. None of you are even in the realm of reality. Stop complaining. Your ideas are just bad and they're not proliferating. That was basically the gist of it, right? That's what everyone was saying. Well, it turns out that shadow banning was very real. They call it VF, as I said, visibility filtering. This is one actual quote, right? Think about visibility filtering as being a way for us to suppress what people see to different levels. It's a very powerful tool. And they talked all about how the Yoel Roth was so interested in you know, the logic they applied to Trump when they kicked him off Twitter was that it triggered and hurt people, the things that he said, and therefore was a type of violence and a type of promotion of violence. And they really wanted to expand on that type of logic to prevent people from seeing things because it could trigger violence. So they really went far on using rationalization and logic to implement some of these policies, which are clearly designed to suppress conversation and the natural order of debate on the platform. So, you know, I'm not going to explain too much of that stuff. You guys can all sort of figure out. You're going to see a ton of it, right? Twitter files, what's going on. The Jack Dorsey piece looks like he knew, but again, I think this stays in the realm of most of what he thought was happening. Was just the tip of the iceberg. It still looks like, from what I gather, there was so much going on that he couldn't see. And I think it remains intact, that he was unaware and things were being done behind his back and he had no way to really see, but I could be wrong. We get a few statements here in the comments saying, what was Jack's role in this? Was he complicit? Again, doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. Jack Dorsey seems to be intimating he had nothing to do with it and was at the mercy of a few rogue employees. Pretty hard for me to believe, honestly. I don't think it is. You know, I've met Jack Dorsey before. And I'm not saying there's any special, right? But my feeling from meeting him, being in the same room with him, talking with him, I just didn't get any vibes that he was out to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. He just seemed like an honest actor to me. Now, there's no proof in that whatsoever. It's just a feeling. I've been wrong before. I could be wrong in that case. I've been following this for a while, but to me, it looks like I'm still on the benefit of the doubt for him until I see a smoking gun. I don't think he was involved, but I could be wrong. I'm not saying this with certainty. There's so much we don't know. And I wouldn't be surprised if he knew more than I think now. Like my worldview does have room for him to be guilty. Right? My mind is not closed to that. I just haven't seen anything that would make me think it's possible. Right? Holonaut said it right. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Holonaut said that. Visibility filtering is doublethink, and I'll get into what it means. Right? I just want to mention Kevin Opar's comment. Male-female contest dynamics will come full circle and fade away when a trans individual wins a beauty pageant. I'm so pro all of these high schools in America that are electing their trans people as kings and queens. I don't know if you guys have paid attention to that, but we had a whole, we have this thing in high school called homecoming, which is the first time the football team is home after a road trip at the start of the school year. So that usually falls somewhere in late September, early October. And it's usually like a parade, and you get a prom or a homecoming king and a homecoming queen, and But it honestly was the sickest, most vile part of American high school culture, in a sense, right? I get why people like it and are nostalgic about it, and people grew up around that, but it's pretty fucked up. Popular, good-looking people already have a totally different experience in high school than everybody else. And this whole thing where they get honored for simply being better looking than other people in high school and literally get power out of it was always one of the stupidest things about American culture. And that whole high school attitude about popularity and it creates mental scars. I can always tell if someone was a loser in high school. It's hard for them to shake. It really is. It's a shame because the box, the frame that people are put in high school seems so intense because the American system really crowds so many high school kids together, and there's very few teachers. So in the end, the social dynamic between the high school kids becomes their reality. They don't see anything past it. So that's why you get all these cases of high school kids and suicide and all this stuff. I mean, it's a really tough environment, and it's gotten only tougher as social media entered the equation. Way worse. We saw what happened the other day with Ted Cruz's daughter. I don't know much about it. I don't really pay attention to those kinds of stories, but it seems pretty bad. It seems sad, right? We also saw some statistics coming out about all the high school suicide stuff after COVID. But what I didn't understand about that story, there was a story that came out about 2 days ago. Okay, we're back up. Froze video. Yeah. I stopped, guys. You haven't missed anything. Froze video. Now. It should stop now. My screen is indicating we're back on and we're good. Yeah. No. We're good, guys. We're good. Stuck here too. Yeah. I saw it. Must have been the YouTube feed. Yeah. You haven't missed anything. I saw it right away, so we're good. Good. Yeah, I'm very pro the trans high school thing. I think that's an appropriate response. And just think about, how these teenagers are. What would you do if you were a teenager and you had this opportunity to, put a bunch of energy in an institution that is so decrepit, this prom queen thing, right? So I'm very happy with trans people joining the beauty pageants, and I think it's great. Honestly, it's great, right? The whole thing was dumb to begin with. So Just like, honestly, some of these women's sports, right? Let's blow it up, right? Let's blow it up. Now, I love amateur sports for all genders and everything. I think it's great. I've got 2 daughters. I will promote them playing plenty of sports. I will get them involved in plenty of sports. But this professional sports thing, right, where your whole life goes to it so that you're, 0.1 seconds better. I've come to believe that the Olympic Games, for example, I used to be the biggest Olympics fan you could imagine. I'm a Olympics trivia wizard. I know every stadium, city hosts, history, all that kind of stuff. And a few years ago, I realized it's a really negative force in the world. I mean, really bad, right? And the original form of just amateur people getting together and who's the best, right? Fine. But all these people who spend all their lives trying to do a better somersault than someone else, and then when it's over, only one person gets anywhere for doing the best somersault. Everyone else is forgotten about. So it's just a bad strategy, right? It's good for the one gold medalist in one end. Everybody else, it's a bad strategy, and it takes all of your time and effort, and is nothing but that same feeling that everyone complains about not being good enough, not being whatever. And these are world-class athletes, yet they live in a terrible world of self-doubt and all those things. So negative force Olympic Games. So let's move back to the Twitter files story, right? So you're going to hear a lot more analysis today about visibility filtering and all that. So we're not going to spend too much time on it. We'll go back to what we see as the important filters, right? So what I have here today is this idea of visibility filtering, and really just reality filtering in the end, right? So you've got all of our normal senses, right? All of our normal senses here. And money has really found a way. So these are different color arrows going into the first filter, delete, right? Delete. So again, what do you expect would happen when a big revelation like this comes out? Would the mainstream media jump in and say, oh, we were wrong, we had it wrong, we didn't tell the right story, oh my God, what a revelation? No, right? Too much of a psychological jump for these institutions. It's being completely ignored again, just like the first Matt Taibbi Twitter files release, right? It's not happening. Konstantin Kisin went through a bunch of headlines today to find out in the UK if anyone's even picking it up. So he goes, nothing on Twitter files, but here are the most important stories in their world. The misogyny of AI portraits. Okay, that's one of them. Why your dog is one of these 10 types. That's one, right? Fired Twitter cleaners treated like garbage, right? So they're on to the people who got fired at Twitter, the cleaning crew, and they didn't get a nice goodbye. So that's the priority that they're going to cover in that newspaper. So it goes on like this, right? It's just a bunch of stories that never even mention it, right? So the Times doesn't mention it. It goes like that throughout the entire country. I haven't seen a similar analysis done in America. Plenty of people pointing out the hypocrisy over the years, right? So here's Matt Binder something. He's some kind of liberal talking head. Here he is, slamming Trump. When Trump was complaining on Twitter about shadow banning, he says, the guy who wrote the false Twitter shadow banning story advice is here and doesn't correct it. There is no shadow banning. That's what he said a few years ago, right? And then today, it's everything that Barry Weiss is currently breaking as part of Twitter Files 2 has been reported and known for a long time now, right? So Stephen L. Miller, this is the Red Steez, not the Stephen Miller who worked for Trump. The shadow banning story is false. Also, we already knew about the false shadow banning. That's pretty good, huh? Pretty good. It's all of the ignore it, right? Ignore it. But the distortion is what this guy is saying, right? And Sticks, X, and Hammer comes and underlines that. He says, along with other leftoids, Matt deliberately tries to reframe the Twitter files, willfully ignoring the objective lies told by Agrawal and Dorsey about shadow banning. A lot of these leftoids laughed and called you a conspiracy theorist if you insisted Twitter used shadow bans, right? So Sticks, Hex, and Hammer 666 saying here that Dorsey was part of it, but he's a YouTube personality, and it probably is going to go with a slightly more hyperbolic take. He has a video to make this morning too. I'm a huge Sticks, Hex, and Hammer 666 fan, and do think his analysis is one of the most accurate in the world. I follow him and watch his videos. So not accusing him of anything here, of maybe just throwing in Jack Dorsey's name in order to, well, his name is not out of it, so Stick, Sex, and Hammer is still on the correct path, right? Basically this idea that you can delete, distort, change the facts ends up in this analog world really dulling all of these senses, right? Because you can put these filters and it stops your initial point of view from getting through, right? It stops it from getting through. You can even see it a little bit. You can even see this a little bit in a way that I think all of us noticed yesterday, which was the Jordan Peterson discussions, right? Jordan Peterson telling everyone 2 days ago, oh, anonymous Twitter is stupid and you can't have it. Now, if you look into the comments of that, what you're going to see is a little bit weird. You see a lot of people arguing to him that anonymity in general is good, but he's talking about Twitter, right? So we have to separate the two ideas of anonymity in general, right? He wasn't making any statement about anonymity in general. So people saying, oh, Satoshi was anonymous to Jordan Peterson. Well, that's not anonymous on Twitter. It's not the same thing, right? It's not the same thing. It's not. And you saw, just so many people distorting what Jordan Peterson said. Now, I realize there's a huge argument to be made about anonymity being important and useful on Twitter, right? But the arguments for anonymity being useful on Twitter are not the same as the arguments for anonymity in general. And in the end, I thought Jordan Peterson was just wrong because he's only giving the world from his point of view, right? Someone who is harassed by, now I agree, anonymous doesn't mean you use the name your mother gave you, right? I think in his worldview, there's still a chance for someone to have like a Gigi name who we don't know who he is, but he's a clear human being on Twitter. He's not a bot with 0 followers, no profile pic. So I think, oh, was it again? Was that again? Huh? Back now? Okay. This is just a mild defense of Jordan Peterson. I think he's still wrong, right? I think he's still wrong. It's a mild defense of Jordan Peterson. So just separating Twitter anonymity and what it means, right? Because there's a group of people out there that bring nothing to Twitter who are just the troll accounts that they're not anonymous, right? We can differentiate psychologically, I think, the difference between an account that doesn't use their name, but we know who they are, right? They're writers or authors, like a Gigi, right? I'd say a Gigi is a perfect example in the Bitcoin world, right? We don't know that person's name. We don't care to know it. We don't need to know it. But they're not anonymous. He's not anonymous, right? Just because you're not using your name doesn't make you anonymous. We know this person, right? We've read their books. We know what to expect. We can frame our interpretation of what Gigi is saying based on everything else they've ever said, right? There's context. So I thought that he didn't really explain that enough anyway. And I think where he went totally wrong is, look, these anonymous accounts are only really a problem to people like him who are getting attacked by it all the time because he's a huge account, right? So that's part of it, right? So this, we can see these things distorted at all times, even by ourselves, right? As Bitcoiners, right? I think we didn't treat the Jordan Peterson debate with the nuance required because we're just arguing separate things that don't matter, right? Satoshi was anonymous. Well, Satoshi wasn't on Twitter. We're talking about Twitter anonymity, right? Anonymity in life is another subject. It's not the same as what Jordan Peterson was saying. Again, I disagree entirely with Jordan Peterson, entirely, right? But what I'm talking about is your ability to sort of lose track of things because of different filters, and you saw everyone coming up with their statements and it was chaos, right? It made no sense to anyone. If you read the comments under Jordan Peterson, it's a million different conversations, right? No one is speaking about the same thing. It's just crap, right? And that's, one way these filters can get distorted. So again, against what Jordan Peterson is doing, but not because I think that Satoshi is an example against his argument. It's not, right? Satoshi was just a person who was anonymous, but we still have a sense of who Satoshi was, right? It's not, there's an account, there's an email, there was the chats, there was all that stuff, right? The white paper itself, right? The email group, all of that are signals that this is not purely anonymous. We use the word anonymous probably too loosely for current circumstances in the world. We probably need a new definition of what anonymous means in order to navigate these complicated questions. So again, not supporting anything that Peterson said. I disagree. But the reasons I disagree are not because of anonymity in general or other things, right? So yeah. And I agree that Peterson needs to take a step back. That's where I'm at on this, right? He just needs to take a step back. And there is a way for him to have this conversation that isn't this situation where he's just triggering everyone and everyone's angry at him. It's become like a sport that I hate on this guy, right? And he kind of does that. He just, I think, he goes on about narcissism a lot, right? But in any situation that he's in, who do you think is a narcissist, right? Like, who is the narcissist? If you're only seeing your problems on Twitter, right? If you're only seeing your gender preferences and all that stuff, I'm starting to think that a little. And now I don't think he would deny it. I think if I was in a room with Jordan Peterson right now, I could say, well, you have narcissistic tendencies, and I think he would agree. I don't think he would say no to that, right? So I'm not, I think, saying anything that is unappreciative of who he is. I appreciate the guy, right? I do. I think he's done a lot of good for men out there in the world, right? I think a lot of these men needed it. So again, not criticizing him entirely, but in this case, I think it's just him not seeing past his own experience. And I bet the trolls suck for him, but that's not what everyone is seeing out there. So there you go. All right, back to the important stuff. So you've got these two sort of filters, right? You can delete, you can distort, and that's what we're seeing, right? You're seeing all these Twitter files push these two filters. And in the end, whatever ends up with the person just ends up coming out in this sort of monochrome, whatever manages to get through the filter, right? Whatever manages to get through the filter. But it's all changing. Everything is changing quick, right? Here's Peter Schiff, right? And this is where the Bitcoin piece comes in, right? So the Bitcoin piece to me is that in a certain way, Bitcoin can help you break or get around these filters that can be bought and paid for that would limit your normal senses, right? That will limit all of your normal senses in the analog world, what you're reading, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're speaking about, all of that stuff, right? You can actually pay to have these filters. I continue to think that Bitcoin does behave as a type of third eye for people. It's part of our intuition in the end. Because it is a basis for a worldview, you're actually able to use a Bitcoin filter to get a certain degree of accuracy and perception on the world that you would not have had otherwise. It's something I've been practicing for years. It's really what this show is all about, right? That you can actually train another sense, a sixth sense, that is more powerful than any of your analog real world senses, right? And because everything in the end is economics, right? Economics come into all of our choices. That's what economics are, right? Forget about all the complicated definitions of economics. They don't matter, right? Economics are really just about the choices humans make every day to spend time, spend money, consume this or consume that. They're a series of choices that are informed and made by individuals on a daily basis. And because economics are at the heart of almost every choice we make, having an economic system that the human mind can navigate is really important in order to make decisions and not be victim to these fake filters that can be put on your eyes at any time. But it's breaking down. Here's Peter Schiff on a distort, right? Distort. This is Peter Schiff doing distortion yesterday. Adam Schiff, right? Not Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff, the Bitcoin guy, I will say, continues to fight for freedom of speech and is a freedom of speech absolutist. So I'll always defend the guy on that, but we're talking about Adam Schiff here, right? We're talking about Adam Schiff. So my mistake, I shouldn't have said Peter Schiff. Too much Bitcoin stuff. So Adam Schiff is the congressman who ran point on the Russia collusion, Mueller, all that stuff, right? The Mueller report. So as this is all going on yesterday, right? This is the distort action, right? Delete is to ignore, distort This is what he says, right? All this stuff going on, Twitter files, da, da, da. On Elon Musk's Twitter, slurs against black people have tripled. Slurs against women are up 33%. Slurs against Jewish people are up 61%. And slurs against gay men are up 58%. These numbers are abysmal and unacceptable. So when, and he says action, right? So what ends up happening, he gets, remember the community notes thing that we've been talking about? Community notes based on this Taiwanese technology that takes aggregate opinions from around the internet, not upvoted ones that are just powered by trolls, but it actually weights opinions that are held on one side of the aisle and the other side of the aisle higher in order to get a more unbiased view, right? So it's actually trying to unbiased view. So it comes in and actually fact checks them and says, this tweet refers to research by the Center for Counterfeiting Digital Hate, analyzing the number of tweets containing hate-related content. Twitter measures the impressions that harmful tweets receive, and Elon Musk has stated impressions have declined since he took over. So you've got Michael Malice reporting on this. Twitter is calling out agitprop, so that's agitation propaganda, in real time, directly under the tweets. The enemy class is fucked. Alan Farrington jumped in on that too. Alan Farrington, a great Bitcoin writer, says, Musk has trolled these goons into showing the only cards they have. Quote, we have to control discourse on the internet and lie about it for everybody's own good. To protect fragile wards, we have designated victims and appointed ourselves protectors. He goes on, these people really seem to believe that they have gotten away with for 10 plus years and are now doubling down on agitating for is in no way political, but rather some kind of righteous calling of justice and truth, right? So this is, again, the distortion field, right? So this is distortion. And he's referring here to a comment by Yugi Pius 1. Oh, no, that's not it. Sorry. Here's another one from, Yugi. This is the Yugi Pius 1, right? Talking about how someone commented that all of this stuff is like Russiagate. It means nothing, right? This is Russiagate for Republicans, right? This is the same way that Democrats used to wait around for Mueller report stuff, and in the end it was nothing. This is the same thing, right? It's the same thing. It means nothing. She says the Twitter files stuff feels like Russiagate for Elon Musk fans. The breathless threads, all totally incomprehensible, and the assumed shared understanding of why the latest revelation is huge. So is this accurate? Well, Yugi Pius says, this is a point I've tried to make a few times recently. People with a certain worldview literally can't understand what's happening in these email leaks and their significance. Their model of the world and of power is so broken, they look at these emails and see nothing. A bizarre point about many leftoid progressive liberals is they don't understand that theirs is the reigning ideology. They don't perceive of mantras like trust and safety and diversity, equity, inclusion as mechanisms of power. It's crazy, but they truly believe these slogans. And that's it right there, right? That is it right there. They truly believe this stuff, right? And that's why this distortion field has worked so well, right? Which is why Bitcoiners on a sense of intuition, now go back to the early Bitcoin days, right? When early Bitcoins, and when I joined in 2013 and put my whole life into this war effort, right? My thought at the time was, I'm just trusting my instinct here, right? This was a gut feeling. This was like, there's no other way probably, right? Now, I had no reason to do it. I had a great job. I had just tabled a Bitcoin report. I could have moved on to more reports. I had a beautiful office in Parliament, a fireplace, a secretary, all the fancy trappings of credentialist fiat world, right? But of course I knew it all meant nothing because the system was so screwed that if we didn't break it, we were not getting anywhere. But this was, you know, if you go back to 2013, this was a 1 in a trillion shot. Now, it wasn't really. We knew what we were doing and thought it was going to bend to our will. But at the same time, it was, if enough of us didn't run our lives on this intuition, it wouldn't have happened, right? And I think that's still the case now. If people don't have this sort of sixth sense about the world and haven't developed their third eye, we say, they're blind, right? It's very difficult without intuition to make sense of the world today because the money is so corrupted, because these filters are so well funded and so good at their job of warping reality, of deleting things, of blinding you, of twisting what you think, right? Even look at this one here. This is Caitlin Johnstone, right? Caitlin Johnstone. She wrote a piece today about Zelensky winning the Time Magazine Man of the Year award. And she wrote the whole piece as if it was a series finale of a TV show. And it fits. Listen to this. She says, the season finale of the hit show Proxy War, a heartwarming season wrap-up that's sure to make wholesome viewing for the whole family, with series star Vladimir Zelensky being awarded 2022 Person of the Year by Time Magazine. Here's a quote from it. But the numbers are in, and it turns out the world is head over heels in love with the Proxy War's unique combination of reality TV, inspirational storytelling, mind-crushing internet censorship, and high-octane war propaganda. Naysayers may complain that they are tired of having their intelligence assaulted, but as far as John and Jane Q public are concerned, it can't get insulted enough. Yet our Western culture may be a stagnant cesspool of plastic performers, empire smut, and corporate rim jobs, but boy howdy can we still spin a good yarn when we need to. Stay tuned for season 2. Will Zelensky finally get a guest spot on a Saturday Night Live? Will leading lady Olena Zelensky release that new fashion line? Will rumors prove true of a Muppet movie in Kiev? Stay tuned and find out soon, right after this short commercial break. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Now, the way things are changing, and the reason why the third eye can become so well trained now and so much more well informed, it's not just Twitter. It's the ability to handle real stories. Real stories like this one, right? Pension funds in the Central American states, Ohio, Indiana, the Central States Pension Fund, it's called, about to be finished. No more money, not funded. Biden is giving them $36 billion to fund their pensions, right? Now, would this have been properly managed with this formula here of bought and paid for filters applied to all of our understanding of that? Of course not. The information would barely ever reach a human mind, right? But Bitcoiners understand that this is a major domino, that the pension liabilities, that the benefits liabilities are a Damoclean sword over the head of nation states, right? That this thing coming down, it's the whatever $68 trillion missing from BIS, right? We even get, here's Saifedean, right? Here's Saifedean. Normally, the fake news doesn't know how to process central bankers. It doesn't know how to say, well, that guy's dumb. He's stupid, right? There's an aura around them because of the way this stuff is handled, the way it's reported on. And there's a newspaper article yesterday in Canada about a central banker that I've worked with, that I know personally, spoken to. He lives in my town just over here across the border. Known him for a long time, Tiff Macklem, right? And the headline is central bankers have, he's a central banker for Canada. Central bankers have to make hard decisions, and sometimes they get it very wrong. And Saifedean Amos comes in and says, fact check, false. Central bankers don't have to make any decisions whatsoever. They don't have to exist at all. They exist only to benefit banksters and governments at the expense of productive people and to hire morons in the press and academia to simp and propagandize for them. Powerful stuff. Now, all this brings us to the biggest story of the day. The biggest story of the day. I don't even know if you've heard it yet. Right? I don't even know if you've heard it yet. A long way to breaking down this reality and allowing for us to have conversations about change in banking, about changes in pensions, about changes in all the systems in the world. And it's this. This morning, the senator, now the senior senator for Arizona, Kristen Sinema, young woman, lots of unique ideas, lots of unique strengths, talents, has just become, as of this morning, the most powerful person in political America. As of today, she is the only one who matters. There is literally no one else in US Congress or executive, the president included, who has more power than her. Why? Well, 2 days ago, when Herschel Walker lost the Senate runoff in Georgia, it meant that the Senate in the United States became 51 to 49 Democrat over Republican, not 50-50. If it was 50-50, then you're not able to do a bunch of filibusters. You're limited in the bills you can pass because some things require more than 50%, right? So now that it was 51-49, it looked like the Democrats kept control of the Senate, right? It looked like the Democrats kept control of the Senate. Republicans have control of the House. Democrats have control of the Senate. That means appointments go through. That means all kinds of stuff the president wants gets through. But Kristen Sinema is very smart. She's not stupid at all. She realized that if she moves out of the Democrat Party, she instantly becomes the most powerful person in political America, because she brings it back to 50-50. Doesn't mean she's a Republican. Sitting as an independent now, she is able to be the kingmaker on any bill. She has to be, they have to ask her permission to pass a bill from now on, right? So she's completely recalibrated the balance of power in DC just by deciding to be the most powerful person in DC. She saw the opportunity, right? The way it all shook out meant that if one senator broke from Democrat ranks, suddenly their vote is more valuable than all the other votes. So what I love is the simulation giving us an amazing wink. Her name is literally Sinema. Sinema. Movie. This is a movie. It's a third act. It's a movie, right? And we're talking about the psychological flip that has to happen for hyper-Bitcoinization to come in, right? I said all that stuff that could happen in Arizona when Blake Masters was running and Kerry Lake was running, and they were going to bring nuclear energy and they were going to do all this stuff. Well, suddenly it's all possible again. All possible again. What is happening in Arizona means that Sinema, who was never really a whippable Democrat, right? She already was pretty independent-minded. Now is even more so, and she understands her position. She understands that she got power, real power, by leaving the Democrat Party. And this is going to help break politics more than we realize. I think Sinema is going to be a Bitcoiner within a year. Within a year, she is going to turn full Bitcoin, full, because she needs a way to continue to exploit her position in the middle here. And so if she's going to get power, it's got to be on every single issue that comes through. They're going to have to solicit her. So she's going to have to take a third rail approach on almost everything, right? So in the end, this is a type of a third act in a narrative, and Sinema is the person who's going to do it. Sinema, right? Sinema is going to do it. All right, team. So that's all I got for today. This is a day where I have to go take a call, which I'm 2 minutes late for. Great. See you tomorrow morning, team. And I'll be on at noon today with news and notes with Bitcoin Magazine Live. See you there, folks. Peace.